Well, joining us now is Labour expert Michael Bagram. Michael, good afternoon to you. Firstly, your reaction to all of these strikes. I think South Africans tend to get quite panicky. What do you think?
We do, but it's actually not correct. This is strike season. So every year we see the same thing, and every year everyone gets panicky. People start running around. We have interviews like you've just seen, and it's not a problem. We have strikes. We expect to have the strikes. We, as South Africans, have that right, and it's a hard-won right that we got from the new democracy. So I think it's good. I think it's healthy and good. And as a labour law expert, I look at this as being the results of the hard demands that have been coming in the years prior to the democracy.
There's a perception that this year's strike season seems more intense than ones we've seen in recent years. Is it just a case of us having a collective bad memory?
It's not really that. Look, we've got also problems. The economy has also been suffering. So you've got to add it. We heard Albert Skatemarker earlier on, and from that we hear that the economy is suffering anyway. So the strikes are becoming more urgent and more demanding, and you can understand that from workers. From management on the other side, you can see that the problems are that money is not easily affordable. And so although the strikes are useful and good, at this time it's probably wrong. It's coming on the back of a huge problem, the recession that we're feeling. And also this time in this year, we already within the first day of the municipal strikes, we've just heard on ETV News, that Johannesburg has been trashed. Now that's not acceptable. We're not living in times where it's needed. We're living in a democracy and we have the rights. So it's a real problem at the moment in the sense of where we're standing in the economy. And it's a real problem at the moment in the sense of people misbehaving during a strike. And it's criminal misbehavior. We see scab labour has been attacked as well. That's certainly not acceptable, and I presume that management will be taking action against these people after the strike. The message that needs to go out to COSATU and to the trade union affiliates is that they must keep their people under check, because otherwise the whole public demand of let's support the strikers is going to go out the window. It's a real problem in that sense.
You talk about demands, you talk about the backdrop to this strike. I mean, most of it coloured by the recession and the global credit crisis. What do you make of unions' demands? I mean, particularly this municipal strike, workers wanting 15%. On the face of it, management's offer of 10.5 is not all that bad.
It's actually very good. In fact, we see that Metrorail, the strike has been suspended. It was suspended earlier on. I just got the news myself. And they were offered initially only 7%, but are now management offering 8%, and immediately the union has said, this looks reasonable, let's suspend the strike with the 8%. Now what's happening with the municipal strikes at 10.5%, that's pretty good. And especially in the economy that we're facing now, that we heard from the Chamber of Commerce, I think that's very good. And I think the unions need to take a step back from the 15% that they asked. That's problematic, and it's not going to be sustainable, even by government. And the real problem that we're seeing is that people, because they're not getting the results out of the strike, people are then feeling that they need to misbehave in some way. You need to take a rubbish bag and throw it on the streets. And who are you punishing? You're only punishing the public. You're not punishing the employer. Government's not suffering because of that. And in fact, what you're doing is you're in turn punishing yourself, because you and I, sitting over here, are going to say, but you know, this is punishing us as well. It's my street. I'm Mr. Public. I'm sitting over there and I have to go through this. So the problems that we're experiencing now with the strikes this year are not easily soluble, and to go and expect and demand the 15%, I think, is overreaching. It's pie in the sky.
What would you say, though, to those that would suggest that they support this strike action? They feel that a 15% wage demand is not all that problematic or unrealistic, given the historically low level at which some of these municipal workers have been paid in South Africa?
I accept that, and I accept that people aren't getting the best wage that they could get. However, you have to weigh that up against the economy, the bad economy, and you have to weigh it up. In South Africa today, we have many, many people without a job. And you've got to look at that side of the coin. You've got to look at the economy as a whole and say, right, I've got a job. I might get 11%. Government might move another 0.5%. I presume they will before the end of the strike. And I presume that the unions will come down and try and match the 11%. I don't think we're going to get a settlement at 15%. And if you look at it from an economic point of view, That 15% is going to take many, many years to catch up if we're going to sit for 2-3 weeks without a salary. Remember, no one is earning during the strike. That's horrific. You're not taking any bread home, and if you're living on the bread line, then you really got a problem. So my expectation of this strike is that it will be short. It will be nasty and brutish. We've already seen that. But I think that the unions have to come. They're going to need that pressure from their own membership. They're going to have to come to the table and settle around about 11.5%. And that's what we're seeing already. We're getting those rumours coming through already through the labour law field.
You say that strikes are good, a good expression of where we've come from. Do you buy into the argument, though, that as far as the broader economy is concerned, these strikes are a bad thing?
No, I don't. I disagree with the Chamber of Commerce and with big business. Strike is the withholding of your labour. And at the end of the day, that's what an employee and an employee's organisation, a trade union, has as their final stick. They need to have that stick to be able to beat the employer, to withhold the labour. And a strike is a very useful exercise because it manages to balance the field. Otherwise, all the power lies with the employer. Now, I'm an employer's lawyer, and I understand that. But I also got to understand that you need to have the balancing of that power struggle. And I think it's been very good. We've got it in our constitution, our South African constitution, which is one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. We've got the right to strike. Management have the right to lock out. So there's two balancing factors, and I think it's not bad for the economy. It's good for the economy because we do need to find the balance of what is a fair wage, and we need to find the balance as to when to actually withhold your labour. And if you haven't got that right, then what can you play with? Then we may as well go back to the days before the democracy where people then resorted to the horrific actions such as violence and trying to blow up factories and stopping scab labour coming in,